Ladies and gentlemen, this is your friendly neighborhood sales trainer Gerardo Rodriguez. Please stay tuned for another episode, a very special, and I mean really special episode of Cállate y Vende. So please stay tuned. You are in Cállate y Vende. Welcome everybody, bienvenidos amigas y amigos, damas y caballeros, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen. This is your friendly neighborhood sales guy, Gerardo Rodriguez. You are in Cállate y Vende. Here in Cállate y Vende, we have already studied, researched the very best practices and tools for this excellent and truly wonderful industry, being and profession of a salesperson. So here in Cállate y Vende, we have already studied and we want to deliver that value for you. We want to share that very best practices with you guys, los cabrones de las ventas, the sales ass kickers. All right, we have a very special episode. This is episode 041. So if you please allow me, I will speak Spanish for a couple of minutes here because I want to deliver an explanation of why I am talking on my second language, which is English. As you've already, as you can imagine, this is not my first language. I am a Mexican guy, and English is not entirely. I'm not exactly bilingual here. So, amigas y amigos, este episodio es un episodio muy especial. Es el episodio 041 de Cállate y Vende. Cállate y Vende es un episodio, es un podcast en español y seguirá siendo en español. Pero este es un episodio tan especial que voy a tener una conversación con Mike Weinberg, un máster en las ventas. Te estoy hablando de un top seller de libros como Nuevas Ventas Simplificadas y Gerencia de Ventas Simplificadas en Amazon, ¿ok? No es cualquier cosa. Entonces grabé mi conversación en inglés y quiero compartirla en inglés. No te preocupes, tomé notas de todo lo que aprendí de mi conversación con Mike Weinberg y te voy a preparar un episodio, una grabación y un Facebook Live solamente de lo que aprendí de este señor en esta conversación. Así que no te preocupes si no hablas inglés. Este episodio definitivamente tiene muchísimo valor para ti y no voy a dejar pasar simplemente por el hecho de que no hables inglés. Así que si no hablas inglés, no te preocupes. Prepararé un episodio muy especial de las notas, nada más de lo que aprendí de esta conversación y obviamente la haré en español. All right, without further ado, I would just want to talk about and introduce. Let me just roll up for you the red carpet, because a true sales master is going to have a conversation with us, the sales ass kickers, los cabrones de las ventas, the name of our community. So Mike Weinberg, a truly sales master, a top seller at Amazon with his books, New Cells Simplified and Sales Management Simplified. We're talking about a true sales master here. So I'm going to play the previously recorded conversation I had with Mike, and please listen to this recording, listen to this podcast, listen to this transmission with paper and pen in your hand, because you are about to take a lot of freaking notes. All right, Mike Weinberg, I just want to say that I'm so happy of having this type of master of coaches here in Cállate y Vende, because there's so much value in our conversation. There's so much to learn from a person such as Mike that I'm truly grateful for the opportunity. I'm truly grateful of this opportunity to share this with you. All right, so I'm going to skip with my usual introduction when I say hi to all of you guys that give me your 5-star rating over at iTunes and your brief comment, your brief review. I just want to say that I would really appreciate if you hit me up with your 5-star rating and review. It would mean the world to me. It's like my freaking fuel to keep going with this very, very special project, which is my passion, and I do it with all the love of the world. So please, 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 Cheche, producer, start the recording now. Hola, Mike. How are you?
Hola, fantastic. Thank you for having me, Gerardo.
Oh, this is a true honor, you good sir. So welcome to the program. Welcome to Cállate y Vende. All right, let's start from the very beginning. Who is Mike Weinberg, and why must salespeople listen to you, Mike?
I have no idea who I am. I'm more confused every day. Actually, you know what's funny is I say this a lot. I cannot believe it took me 45 years to figure out that this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I never wanted to be in sales, and my dad was always a big sales executive in New York City when I was growing up. And in my second job out of college, I ended up in sales, and I did well, and I worked in a lot of different companies as a top producing salesperson. And without taking you through all the history, I ended up in consulting and coaching. And I realized that I love it. I love telling the truth to executives and making them deal with hard issues. And I love more than anything else in business helping salespeople and sales teams acquire new customers and win more new sales. So on the business side, that's what I do. I am living in St. Louis, Missouri, right in the middle of the United States. And I've got a wife and 3 children, and 2 of them are in university right now. So I'm working hard to make as much money as possible. And I love sales. I'm a proud salesperson.
All right, excellent. And Mike is also according to Amazon, right, Mike? Best-selling author of New Sales Simplified, as well of Sales Management Simplified. Did I get it right, Mike?
You did. Yeah. I've been amused and amazed and just really thankful for the success of those books. I never would have expected, especially the first book, New Sales Simplified. It was named earlier this year as the number 3 most highly rated sales book ever. So it gets me a lot of attention, and it's really, what amazes me is because it's so basic and the concepts are so simple and easy to implement, but it continues to sell, and it brings me a lot of attention. So I'm very thankful for that.
That I think that is the very thing that makes this book unique. As you put it, it's so basic, it's so simple. Yes. Because up to that book and a couple of others that comes to my mind, sales books were like over complex, like sales gurus trying to over complex on specific practices or whatnot. But sales are simple. It's about human beings, one relationship to another, one guy to another. So, and I think this particular book, New Sales Simplified, it's a golden mine. And we're going to talk about your 2 books, Nuevas Ventas Simplificadas y Gerencia de Ventas Simplificadas, que son en español. Ambos están traducidos al español, lo pueden encontrar en las librerías, ¿no? We're going to talk about them, especially the former, New Sales Simplified, because we're talking to salespeople here. A huge amount of value in your books. But in New Sales Simplified, you focus particularly a lot on new business development. So my question might come up to you as stupid or very logical. So this is my very first question to you, Mike. Farmer or hunter, which one is better?
Yes, that's my answer. They're both good. They're both important. What makes me crazy, and we can talk about this all you want, is that in most companies, we have one job that encompasses both hunting and farming. And that's where we run into trouble. But I think that keeping our existing customers happy and buying from us and serving them is really important. But so is getting more new sales. And my expertise is more the new sales, not the farming and the account management. But the companies I get brought into call me because they're frustrated. that they're not bringing in new sales at the rate they want to. And sometimes the reason is because their sales team is staffed with people that are wired like farmers. And I call them, in my sales management book, I refer to them as zookeepers, not just farmers, because the customer is alive and it needs care and to be fed and protected and
Makes
nurtured.
sense.
So there's a lot of people in sales roles who love to care for customers, but they don't love to hunt. And that's where I think we get into some challenges.
So it is my understanding that you would recommend to have, and this is kind of exciting. I'm excited already. Okay, so would you recommend that you have some, I don't know, like a hunter squad, a hunting squad for a particularly new territory, a particularly new product line or service line, right? And a farmer or zookeeping squad for the business that you quote unquote already have?
Ideally, I think that's a brilliant suggestion. Yes. It's not that simple in most companies because there's some of each normally, but if there was any way to divide up the roles and have farmers farming and hunters hunting, I think everyone would be happier and we'd have more sales. Because you let the hunter, part of the problem we don't have more new sales, it's not just that the fact that farmers or zookeepers don't like to hunt and they're often bad at it. It's also that we have a few hunters, but instead of freeing them up to hunt more, when they kill something, we make them drag it back to the office, and then they have to cook it and serve it and do the dishes, and they don't get to spend much time hunting because we make them do all the farming and zookeeping, if you get what I'm saying. Yeah, so it's both. So I wish that we would divide the roles up, but most companies aren't willing to go that far. And they're just hoping to get their regular person to do both and stop defaulting to farming so they do a little more hunting.
Okay, so I would guess that my next tip would be, or Mike's next tip, I should say, is to make the sales process easy for the salesperson, so the hunt can continue to hunt without having all this time-consuming issues like get a copy of this, send the format to that, the credit line format, or send the PO to customer service, blah, blah, blah. Would that make any sense to you, Mike?
Boy, I like the way you think and the way you articulate that. Yes, because here, and this is going to sound crazy, but what I find when I do consulting, when I'm in a company for a long period of time, everywhere I go, the number one issue why salespeople don't get more sales is because they don't spend enough time selling. And some of it is it's funny, but it's true.
It is funny and it is true.
And some of it is their own fault because they look for reasons not to sell. And they overserve their favorite customers and they want to help out operations and they're always trying to be helpful. But sometimes that's just an excuse. It's an excuse not to do the hard work of hunting. But then also the company gives them a lot of crap to do. And I had a client down in Dallas, Texas, and the salespeople could never make the phone calls and the outbound sales calls they were supposed to make. And the management was getting so frustrated. And I went in there to study them. And for a few days I watched. And the reason they couldn't make all their phone calls and have all the sales meetings is because the company made them do all this customer service work. And they answered the phones, and they would go in the back and have to fill out paperwork for international shipments. And then there were certain types of orders that they actually went and did the picking of the product from the warehouse.
Oh, my God.
Well, that's not sales.
No.
So sometimes it's the salesperson's fault, and sometimes it's the company. And that's why I say they do anything but sell. If they would just spend more time talking to customers, they would find opportunities and they would sell more.
Yes, I get that, but on the other side, you do have from time to time, and from time to time I mean all the time, a lot of salespeople that fear the cold call. Important part, as you put it in your book, Mike, to grab more business, to own more business, to develop new business. Cold call is a basic thing, but a lot of salespeople fear that freaking cold call, and I think that fear itself, is a result, or that time-consuming stuff, that time-consuming like the copy or go grab the product on the warehouse and whatnot. All of that is a result of fear of selling, of fear of, in this particular time, on this particular example, the cold call. I've seen so-called seasoned reps, quote unquote, that do everything they can not to have time left to prospect. Oh, I need to answer this email quickly. Oh, I need to send this quote, blah, blah, blah. What say you, Mike?
I say that you and I have different native languages, and we live in different countries, and we live about 2,500 miles apart from each other, and we see the exact same thing.
Yes.
So, yes. It is, there's nothing, what you see is what I see. And it is, I think you said it so well, a lot of it is fear. And sometimes it's because they don't know what to do. And they're scared because no one has really showed them how to prospect or make a cold call, and they don't love their message or their story or their pitch, so they're not confident.
Don't love their product, don't love their service.
Well, and that makes it really hard, right? And so they're not really proud. So they find, I mean, I honestly see, Gerardo, I see guys that would volunteer to clean the baño, and they rather go in there and do janitorial work and then pick up the phone or go see a stranger. And it's because some of it is because the way God made them. I mean, honestly, their DNA, their natural gifting, their wiring, if you will, is to nurture and protect and serve. And they're just not made to go hunt. They are scared. And then some people are in the middle. They're not as scared and they're willing to do it, but they just don't know how, and no one has shown them. And part of that's why I wrote New Sales Simplified, to take the mystery out. You said it earlier, sales is not complicated. And usually when someone starts telling us how complicated it is, it's because they're either confused themselves because they don't know what to do, or they use that complexity as a smokescreen and they hide behind the complexity so you can't see that they're really not working or why their results are so bad. At least that's what I see.
It makes perfect sense to me, and you just as so you eloquently put it. A lot of salespeople fear the cold call because of their lack of practice, of their lack of knowledge. I just remember we recently have another a keynote speaker, but a public speaker and personal branding, Álvaro Gordoa, a best-selling author of El Método Habla, and he said, I quote, "People fear what they don't know," and makes perfect sense. I just remembered as you told me this. Is the fear of cold call a result of lack of knowledge?
I think some of it is exactly how you said it. It's a lack of knowledge and know-how. And then I think there's this also just false belief that it's really hard and really big and really scary. And when I'm doing a workshop or I'm coaching somebody, part of what I'm trying to help them see is it's not big and scary. It's rather simple. You said it in the beginning. It's people, right? It's just human being to human being.
Yes.
You're a human being who has a solution. The other person is a human being that has a need or a problem or a desire. Mm-hmm. And your job, and my dad taught me this, if your job is to help your prospect or your customer win and succeed, all you're trying to do in a prospecting situation is get a conversation started with the motivation that you believe that they're stuck or they need help or your solution can bring them value. So you want to have a short conversation to see if that can happen. They have a problem. You have the answer. We should talk to each other and see if maybe we're a fit. If we are, we'll talk more and maybe we'll do something. And if we're not, so be it. But in the meantime, I promise them that they're going to get some value and some ideas if they're willing to talk to me for a little bit. And if salespeople would simplify in their mind what they're trying to do and just understand that the customer has a need or a problem and you have the fix for it, let's talk to each other for a minute. And then you package up your message in such a way that's appealing and you ask a few questions, that's sales. But somehow that's scary because no one simplifies it to that level, or they think it's something much harder than that.
I understand perfectly. It makes perfect sense. So do you have another pointer you can give us, you can share with us about overcoming that fear of a cold call?
Yeah, that's good. Let me think about that. I'll make it 2 points. The first one is really simple, and then I'll talk about probably the most powerful weapon we have, which is our messaging or our story. I think you like to call it the pitch. The first part, though, is, and I've seen this in clients where I've coached very young or very new salespeople. Just like anything else in life, if you do it a few times and actually practice, you get better at it. And I have sat with a young man who was 23 years old in his first or second week on the job and had him pick up the phone to make some calls to try to get a meeting with a potential customer. And the first few calls were terrible. He was nervous, he was uncomfortable. So we practiced a little bit more and we worked on his messaging and how he should sound. And I got him to calm down and he made a few more phone calls. And he was still bad, but he wasn't terrible. And then an hour later, and I only mean 1 hour, after making about 15 calls, the nervousness wore off. He got comfortable using certain words. Mm-hmm. He was getting his own style. And before you know it, the guy went from failing awfully and in 1 hour was somewhat decent. And that's one day with a little bit of coaching. So part of what my message is, the trick is to practice. And the reason you're not good at it for most people is because you don't do it. And if you would, and I don't want people to practice on big customers. Practice on some little joker, insignificant prospect and make a few calls and stumble and bumble and stutter and get all confused. And then you do it enough times, you start getting better at it. So number one is practice. And then my second tip is really going to lead us into a bigger conversation of, I think, our most important sales weapon, which is what I call your story. It's your messaging. It's your value proposition. And I think the best way to build your confidence and overcome fear is that you have to work on your messaging so that when you call, whether it's in person or you're popping in person, when you're calling on somebody, you know that what you're going to say is valuable and compelling and matters to the person you're talking to. So it's worth doing a lot of work to craft your story or your message so that what comes out of your mouth is not only powerful, but you're so confident that what you're saying is going to help the conversation move along.
And it's beautiful that you just came up with that, because I was going to ask you later on in the interview, but considering that you just placed the topic to talk about it, this is the particular part of your book, New Cells Simplified, that just blew my mind, and it was beautiful. I'll tell you, Cabrones de las Ventas, which is the name of our community, Cabrones de las Ventas. This is the magic part of the book, New Cells Simplified. Mike teaches you or shares with you a way that you can place together a powerful message, a powerful story. We know it as el discurso de ventas, el pitch de ventas, the sales pitch. And Mike tells you a 1, 2, 3 step, or more or less like 1, 2, 3 basic concepts that you need to have in order to have a very powerful sales pitch, sales story. Mike, do you care to share with us?
Oh my gosh, it's my favorite topic. Of course I'll share it.
Okay.
And that chapter in the book is chapter 8, and it's probably the most popular chapter where I talk about the importance of the story, the pitch, and then I give you this 3-part framework for how to write your own more powerful story.
And this, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Mike, but
No,
this part right here, this chapter, and I mean, it is for everybody, but specifically, I would like this. If you guys hear this episode, all of you guys hearing this episode, they're just tipping your toes in the sales industry. You're just you're within your first weeks, your first months as a salesperson. You need to hear this. You need to put in practice what Mike's about to say. Then all of you guys, seasoned reps, you should do the same and go read the book right now. Well, after this episode, please. Go ahead, Mike.
After the episode, I agree with you. Yeah, and I appreciate how seriously you're encouraging that, because I promise you this is the most powerful thing you could do. Next to carving out more time to sell, the next most important thing you could do is to fix your messaging, your story, your pitch. So I basically have 3 elements or building blocks, ingredients for a very strong, compelling, customer-focused, and differentiating story. And I'm going to list out the 3 elements, and I'll talk about all 3 of them. The first part are the customer issues that we address. It's the problems that your customers have that you solve. It's the pains they have that you take away. It's the opportunities that you help them capture, and the new and better results, the outcomes that if they buy from you, they will experience. That's the first part. The second part of our story is actually what we sell. It's what we do. It's what they give us an order for. I call it our offerings. It's your product or your service. And the third part of your story are your differentiators. Why are you or your product or your solution better and different than other alternatives that are available? So 3 parts: customer issues, their pains, their problems, their opportunities, their results that you achieve, the things they're trying to get done in their business, in their world. The second part are our offerings, what we sell. And the third part is why our solution is better and different. Those are the 3 ingredients. But what's even more important than those being the ingredients are the order in which we use them. And I gave them to you in the order that I strongly recommend.
Okay.
Most salespeople lead with their product or their service.
Yes.
And they say, we do this, we do that, here's my product. And when you lead with your product, you are begging the customer to commoditize you and buy on price, because they already have a product, and in all likelihood. So if you talk about your product, there's nothing special about it. So don't lead with your product, because it shows that you don't care about them and their issues, and it may put them in a position to buy on price. So that's what happens when you lead with your product. We don't want to do that. Some salespeople do a better job, and they're more creative, and they will lead their pitch by talking about how different their solution is. We have the best, and it's unique, and here's our process, and here's why it's different. And I give you credit, that's better because it's more creative, and it may work. But I think there are 2 risks. The first risk is that what you think matters, those differentiators, may not be that meaningful to the customer or the prospect. You may think we have XYZ process and we have this patent or we have this approach. Or, I have a client that sells trucks in America, and they're made in America trucks. And they love to brag that every serial number on every truck they've ever made starts with a 1, which means it was made in the United States.
Okay.
And you know what? That sounds great. But the problem in the trucking business in the U.S. right now is the things that the fleet manager cares about, they don't care where your truck was made. They care about uptime.
Fuel efficiency.
Is the truck going to break? They care about, is the driver comfortable? Because every trucking company can't find enough drivers. And they care about fuel economy. So I try to explain to the truck salespeople, stop talking about your truck being made in America, because the guy who's buying it, what he really cares about is it going to work? And will I get to attract and keep drivers? And what's the fuel economy? So be careful when you start with the differentiators. They may not matter. And then the other risk is you might come across like someone who's bragging. We're so great and we're the best. And that may turn off the customer because that's about you. That's not about them. So my big answer is if you lead your story, your messaging, your pitch with the ways you help customers and the benefit they receive and the outcome that they experience when they buy from you, this pain goes away, this problem gets solved, or this new and better result happens. When you lead your message with that, and I'll give you an example in a second, everything changes. Instead of them putting up their defenses, their guards come down and they want to talk to you. Because when you start out, and I'll give you an example, I'll use my own story here, Gerardo.
Okay. Please.
If someone says to me, Mike, what do you do? Tell me about your business. The easy answer would be to say, oh, thanks for asking. I'm a consultant. I'm a coach. I do sales training. I've got some great books. That would be leading with my offering. And who cares? So what?
Yeah, and just talk about yourself and what you do, right? Not about the customer. Right. It's not about the customer. It's about you.
Right. Nobody really buys a drill to have a drill. They buy a drill to make a hole.
Yes.
So now I could lead with my differentiators. I could say, oh my gosh, I'm the best sales coach. I've got these unique books. I have this simple thing. I'll tell you the truth. I'm not like other big sales trainers that teach canned off-the-shelf content. And I can tell them all the reasons I'm different. But I don't do that either. Instead, I lead with my issues that I address. And what's tricky is it's not natural. So you need a line to bridge you into that. So I'll give you an example of a line. There's two ways I use this. One is this way. I will say, and I'll plug in the type of customer. Manufacturer companies look to me when, or I could say senior sales executives turn to me when. And if I start my story with that line or this line, I help manufacturing companies, then whatever I say next is going to be good. I can't say manufacturing companies look to me when I do coaching, I do training, I'm so great. It doesn't work.
Nope.
So if you start your story with manufacturing companies look to me when they're looking to create a team of effective sales hunters. And they turn to me when they're frustrated, their salespeople live in reactive mode, and they're missing opportunities, and they're late to the deal, and they can't sell on value, and they're forced to sell on price. And they want to create a team of proactive hunters who fill the pipeline and sell on value. I didn't say one thing about myself.
Nope.
I gave you 5 good reasons that other people buy from me. And when you have a story that starts like that, the customer not only puts their guard down, but they think, wow, you helping those other people that have those issues, maybe you could help me. And I'll give you that. Let me do this one more time because I want to drive the point home. I'm going to use my trucking client as an example.
Okay.
Again, okay.
Please go ahead. This is beautiful.
So let's say that the trucking company, I'm going to use the type of position instead of the type of company. Let's say they normally talk to fleet managers that manage a fleet of trucks for a company that does shipping. So my trucking guy, let's say the name of his dealership is Steve's Trucking. That my sales guy would look at the buyer and say, fleet managers are looking to us when, or he'd say, we're helping fleet managers who are struggling to attract and keep drivers, and they've been challenged to reduce the total cost of ownership and increase the fuel economy on their fleet. And they also come to us when they're disappointed, their trucks are broken too often, and they need to have them in the field more because it's killing them with the expense of missing deliveries and all the maintenance. That story is so powerful because that salesperson said 4 things that mattered to a fleet manager and said 0 things about his trucks or his dealership. And the difference between that and saying, we're so great, our trucks are made in America, our trucks are here, it's night and day. Later, you can tell them about your trucks and why you're different and how wonderful they are.
Yes, as a cherry on top, right? Something like that.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm sorry for taking such a long time to explain this.
Please go ahead.
So that's the story, the message, the pitch. Because when you start with their issues, they immediately want to hear more, and they assume that because you're talking about those issues, you must solve those for other people, and then they want to have a dialogue with you. And that's how you frame your story.
This is beautiful because it's you'd said it earlier that we're so similar to each other. We have a saying here at Cállate y Vende. Our saying, the single saying, the very best or most important message of us is hazlo, que se trate de tu cliente y tu cliente hará que se trate de tu producto o tu servicio. Make it about your customer and the customer will make it about your product or your service, right? And you put it in very similar words. Make it about make it about the customer and the customer will make it about you. As I prepare for this interview, Mike, I saw a number of YouTube videos of yours, and one particularly I just loved it, and it was just a highlight of a conference of yours when where you talked about moving from vendor to value creator. Please talk about this gem, Mike. Please.
Well, first of all, let me just say I want to ask you to repeat that line because it was so powerful. Can you repeat for me the line we said when you make it about your customer? How did you say that? Because it was so beautiful.
Okay, make it about your customer. And the customer will make it about your product or your service.
Yes. Oh my gosh. That is the best line I've ever heard on this topic. That is brilliant. Okay.
It gave me chills. That's good.
Yeah. I need to get your social media so I can tag you with my post on that. That's so good.
All right, cool.
Okay. Moving from vendor to value creator. I think there are two giant problems in sales today. Problem number one is that people live in reactive mode and they farm and they look to do service and they don't work the top of the sales funnel. They don't prospect. They just babysit. That's big problem number one. Big problem number two is that everybody is getting commoditized. They don't sell value, and there's all these procurement people that we can't stand who want to buy on price and take all the fun and all the creativity and try to make everything equal. And it's awful. And unfortunately, a lot of salespeople play into that game and they don't differentiate themselves and they end up coming across as just a vendor. So what I say is there's a few things that we need to do differently so that we don't get treated and viewed as just a supplier or vendor, but we can get elevated in the customer's mind so they see us as an expert, a value creator, a consultant, right?
Right.
So I'm going to just give you a couple examples. We already talked about the most important one, and that's the words we use. When you talk about what you do and you thumb through brochures or you put your product on the table right away, you get commoditized. They just take your product and your price and they compare it to other people. So leading with your product does that. When you go on a sales call, whether it's on the phone or it's face-to-face, and you're having a customer meeting, and you present too quickly, you go in and you just start pitching away, telling them what you've got and why they should have it. And there's no way they can ever see you as a value creator or a consultant because you're coming across like a pitch man.
Yes.
And I'll give you the best analogy I can. Imagine that you're going to your doctor and something is wrong. And you go to the doctor and you wait in the waiting room. I don't know what it's like in Tijuana, but here in St. Louis, you get an appointment for 10 o'clock and you go in, and about 10:30 they put you in the examining room, and you sit there for another half hour and wait, and the doctor finally comes in late. And it would be like if the doctor closed the door, looked at you for a second, and pulled out the little pad where they write a prescription, and he wrote you a prescription for medicine and handed it to you and said, this is the best medicine. Here's why you should take this. I'm convinced this is going to solve your problems. You need this medicine. But the doctor never examined you.
Right.
And he never asked you any questions. And you would think he was a freak. How in the world can you trust someone who comes in with the answer and doesn't do any research or discovery, as we call it in sales?
You can't.
So
you can't.
It's impossible. But yet salespeople go into a sales call and they not only talk too much, but they talk first. So they get commoditized and treated like just a vendor because you act like a vendor who shows up with a product and just starts talking, and you pitch away. So you got to ask questions. You got to run a better sales call. The other thing, I'll just give one more example, that seems to get us commoditized is we do whatever the customer asks us to do. And we come across like an order taker.
Yes.
Like a waiter at a restaurant who's just taking your order. You know, you're picking your cerveza and your some dish, and he just writes it down and brings you back what you asked for.
Yes.
So when you come across as an order taker, they can't see you as bringing value. That's totally different than if the waiter was to come over and ask you about your food preferences and your allergies and, you know, do you like the beer that works with certain types of food? And,
yes.
you know, and he's making suggestions based on what you tell him. That's not an order taker. That's a value creator. So just because, and this is how I'll play it out. Just because a customer asks you for a quote or to come do a proposal or make a presentation, that does not mean it's the right time to do it. I get asked all the time, hey, Mike.
I love it.
Right? I mean, I'm curious what your take is on this. Once in a while, you know, I'll get a request. Hey, Mike, what's your availability in March and what's your price to come do a sales training workshop? So just because some customer who I don't know sent me an email asking for my price, that doesn't mean I should give them my price because I'm expensive.
Yes.
And I better have a conversation to understand what their needs are and a chance to articulate my value and why I'm worth what I'm worth before I tell them that I'm available and here's my price. So if I just give them a price,
commodity,
nothing but a vendor. Gerardo, what were you thinking when I said that? Because you started to laugh.
Yeah,
that's so common, right?
I'm freaking loving this, Mike. You know, but I remembered one of the rules here at Cállate y Vende is no te atrevas a dar un discurso de ventas si no tienes primero claro cuáles son las necesidades de tu cliente. Let me translate that for you. Do not, I repeat, do not start a sales presentation, a sales pitch, if you haven't yet clarified what your customers or your prospects' needs or a problem is. Did I get it right?
Listen to me while I applaud. Oh, this is me clapping. Yes. I call that malpractice. And the fancy way to say it is if you present before you do discovery, that is sales malpractice. That should be illegal. There's no way they can, if you present before you ask questions and understand, even if you think you know their business from their research, there's no way they can see you as someone they can trust because it looks like you came in with the answer. I'm totally with you on that. And let me say one more thing about price because I don't want to forget this. I see so many salespeople who complain that their price is too high. And all the customer cares about is price. And we need a lower price. And this is my caution to you people in sales. Be very careful when you whine and complain that our price is too high. Do you know why? Because that's what pays us.
Of course.
And if we had the lowest price piece of crap, there would not be money to pay a salesperson.
Not a good one, at least.
No. You would just put the price on the internet or on a flyer and say, here's our low price crap. Come and get it. So
yes.
Your job, be very careful because your job as a salesperson is to justify our premium price and explain why our price is higher. That's how you get paid. And if you can't do that, you bring no value. So don't ever, ever, ever say that our price is too high. You should be thankful your price is high. That's what lets you make money.
Definitely. Mike, we need to get going on our exercise. But first, let me ask you this question.
Yeah.
What is the number, according to your experience, Mike, what is the number one mistake that salespeople make?
Oh my gosh, the one mistake?
The number one mistake that salespeople make.
Okay, this is a really hard one because I could come up with about 50.
Top of mind.
They don't ask enough good questions.
That was my number one. That is good.
Well,
I applaud you back. I applaud you back.
We are international brothers.
Yeah, that's great. Why is that? Why is not asking questions the number one mistake that salespeople make, Mike?
Well, it ties into partly what you and I were just discussing. You don't learn enough, and therefore you make bad decisions, and you don't understand what's really going on at the customer, or how they buy, or who else might be involved, and what their real situation is, and where they're struggling, or what they're trying to accomplish. And if you don't learn those things, it's really hard to put a good proposal together. It's really hard to convince them that you're the right choice. And you usually end up with deals that go dark or they stall because you didn't learn enough. And the thing that salespeople forget, I think you accomplish more great selling by asking really smart questions. You accomplish more by asking good questions than you do when you're presenting. Because they know when you ask really insightful questions that make them think or upset them a little bit because it pushes them out of their comfort zone, they know you're an expert and you can help them. And that's really important.
Great. So, Mike, the moment of truth, the moment of the exercise. You and me, Mike.
The exercise.
The exercise. The master keynote speaker, best-selling author versus the young, hungry tiger. Let's leave it at that. I challenge you to give the community of Cállate y Vende, los cabrones de las ventas, your top 3 selling tips. I will provide my own top 3, and we'll discuss it one by one. Does that sound good enough?
Yes, I'm sure you're going to beat me at this, but I'm willing to play along.
This is definitely not. I told you before the interview that my sole purpose was to squeeze the most amount of value out of like a master as yourself. All right, so do not take this as a competition, because I would be extremely humiliated, and this is my show and I cannot take that. So
I promise you will not be humiliated. Okay.
All right.
So do I give you one or do I give you all 3?
No. One. You give me one. We'll talk about it. I'll give you one. We'll talk about it. You the number 2, and we'll talk about it, and so on.
Okay. Perfect. So if somebody put a gun to my head and said, "Give me 3 tips to increase my sales."
I like the analogy. Loving the analogy. All right, that's good.
I'm going to give you the 3. So here's the first one.
Your life depends on this, Mike. Your life depends on this.
My life does depend on this.
Okay.
I would say, number 1, you need to get more strategic and put more thought into who the customers on your list are. And I want you to really put good thinking into where you're going to spend your time looking for more new business. Because if you're a sales hunter, you start by creating a really strategic, smart list of people or companies that look and smell like your best customers. So that's number 1. Don't call on the whole world. Narrow your focus and only pursue the type of customers or prospects that look like your best customers.
Love it. And to do this, you should first develop or explain, like really explain. Have the buyer persona. You have it on the inbound marketing. Like, who is your perfect prospect? Like, what does it look? What does he or she looks like? What industry is he or she, or is it B2B? Is it business to business? What industry? What sector is it? What part of the town? How many employees? Blah blah blah. So you can develop that description, right, Mike?
I love how you articulate your thoughts on sales. Yes, that 100%. The ideal persona, the perfect prospect. Yes, that's what you're looking for, because that's what we want to go find more of. And even the best salesperson will not achieve great results if they're pursuing the wrong prospects. So I totally agree with you. So that's number 1.
Right. Perfect. Loving it. Number 1 for myself would be metrics. And this is like 1.1 of what you just said, like to be strategic. So you need to know, or unchunk, if that's even a word, like unchunk all the sales efforts into like smart daily goals. And I mean daily. You can do it even hourly, right? Like the number of visits, the number of calls, the number of prospects, follow-up calls, follow-up emails. I used to call it the $1 million sales formula until I read your book and noticed you called it the sales math, which seems simple enough. So do the sales math, Mike.
I have nothing to add to that. That's brilliant. Yes, metrics, math. You're stealing a little bit from my number 3, so I'll change my number 3 a little bit when we get to it.
Okay, you got time?
You can't. Yeah, you're giving me a chance to adapt. That I agree 100%, because if you don't put in the work, here's how I like to say it: the salesperson who turns over the most rocks finds the most opportunities, and you can't get around it. Sales is a quality game, but it's also a numbers game.
Definitely.
It's both.
Definitely.
And what you're saying, when you say metrics, I say sales math, we're saying the same thing. Give me the highly active, proactive salesperson and go back to what I said at the very beginning, who spends more time selling, good things will happen.
Definitely. Mike, number 2.
Number 2 is partially a repeat. You must sharpen your sales messaging. There is no more important thing you can do than arm yourself with a sales story that clearly articulates the reasons companies buy from you. There are 2 why questions. Why? Why do they buy? And they buy to take away their pain, to solve their problems, or to achieve a better result. You have to come up with 4, 5, 6 very strong points that explain the reasons they turn to you and your solution. And then the second list of whys is, why are you better and different? Why should they choose you instead of somebody else? And if you make those 2 lists and you incorporate those points into your phone calls, into your emails, into your sales conversations, you will win a lot more business.
It's a great way to decommoditize yourself, isn't it, Mike?
100%. Absolutely.
Loving it.
Beautiful.
All right. So my number 2, Mike, is you already know what I'm going to say. ABC. Always be closing. We have I know you've seen this famous scene of Glenn Ross with
Yes.
Alec Baldwin, aka Donald Trump at Saturday Night Live. So this doesn't mean to always be closing. This doesn't mean to close a deal on a cold call, right? You don't want to sell the car on the first contact you have with your prospect. The ABC rule applies to conquering or committing your prospect to the next step in your sales process, to the next step in your sales funnel. For instance, if you're doing a cold call, say, hey, customer, I'm calling a blah, 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 ask a lot of questions. The sole purpose of that cold call should be the next step. What would the next step be? The sales presentation, a sales interview, schedule a call with that, a meeting with that prospect. During the meeting, what you commit to is I don't know, like, let's start the paperwork going. Don't make a harsh decision right now. Just commit to, I don't know, let's start the credit line process. Let's start this paperwork. Let's get it done for when you are ready to make and just take it further down the line, one step at a time. So that's the way I normally I don't want to say teach, but share how to use the ABC rule. Mike?
Fantastic. I agree. I think it's a beautiful explanation of always trying to secure and schedule the next step. And I'm with you in your philosophy on how you approach this. Closing is not something we just do at the end, trying to ask for the big sale.
Definitely.
You're always doing a little bit of closing. My friend Anthony Anarino has a new book called The Lost Art of Closing. And
I love the title.
It's a great title. And it's not about the last ask. It's about the 10 commitments we need to get customers to make along the way. Mm-hmm. And only number 10 is about asking for the business. And I totally agree with how you said that. Your job is to get little commitments along the way. You're always closing for something. And I like to say that you never leave a customer until you agree and schedule the next step. And not just your next step, but you got to get them to agree to what their next step is. So I'm totally with you on that.
This is beautiful. I want to repeat what you just said. Get them to agree on the what the next step was. Can you repeat that one more time? This is really important.
We never, ever, ever leave a conversation with a prospect or a customer until at the very end we define and we secure and we schedule the next step. And it's not just our next step, it's also their next step. So I'll give you an example. Let's say the customer asked you for a proposal. So a good comeback to that might be, you know what, that's great. I'll do this and you do that. So I'll go back and begin working on the proposal and get my team together or whatever has to happen. And then you're going to get with your people and we agree that I'm going to bring you the proposal next Wednesday and we are going to review it together.
Great.
That's an example of, I'm not just going to do my part, you're going to do your part too. And that way we shake hands, we agree, and you closed on the next step. We secure and schedule the next step before we leave.
Beautiful. Love it. So number 3, Mike.
Okay. I'm going to slightly adapt my number 3 because you talked about sales metrics. What I was going to say is we've got to be more selfish to spend more time selling. So here's the way I'm going to rephrase it a little bit.
Okay.
I think that we need to remind ourselves that over-serving our favorite customers and doing things that are not leading to a sale right now are getting in the way of us making our numbers and earning more money. So it's a mindset thing that not just do we need to work the math, but we need to take back our calendar and actually block out time in our calendar for working on new business, new sales. And not just assuming that if we serve all the customers we have, that more sales will follow. You've got to own your calendar. You've got to stop doing other things and fill that time back up with talking to either growable customers or prospects who don't buy from us yet. And if you do that, especially if you combine all 3 things, you're really strategic about the target list and the accounts you're going to pursue. You fix your messaging so it's about the customer and how you help them. And then the third thing is you combine the metrics that Gerardo talked about, along with my taking your ownership of your calendar so you spend more time selling. I guarantee you, every time, sales will go up.
I love it. This is gold, people. Blocking out a space on your calendar, not to answer emails, not to answer phone calls or instant messages, Facebook, not to go to have, print freaking copies of whatever contract or get freaking coffee, all right? This is the time to prospect. This is the time to hunt. So schedule or book a specific amount of time when you are 100%, and I mean 100%, and Mike means 100%, to focus on having acquired new business. Mike, how about that?
I got nothing to add. This was magical, and I agree. Thank you I love your approach because we are totally aligned in the simplicity of what works. And what makes me crazy is that there are so many people out there trying to tell you all this stuff you got to do to sell more. If you just listen to the message that Gerardo and I shared here, this is what makes a sales winner. You combine the points that we both shared with you, I promise you're going to do more business. And you're going to have more fun doing it.
Definitely. Because obviously, earning more money, it's also very fun, Mike. So let me just wrap it up with my number 3, and I really, really would appreciate your feedback on this. Follow-ups. It's like statistically, I've seen it, I don't know, even in cereal boxes, all right? On the back of cereal boxes, that it takes from 7 to 9 touches for a customer to be ready to say yes, to give you your business, all right? I'm not making this up. You can actually see it on, I don't know, like on Chinese fortune cookies, all right? So you following it up in different, being creative on the follow-up. So I'm going to wrap this up asking the audience a question. So if you already know, because we just shared this with you, that it takes from 7 to 9 touches or 7 to 9 sales efforts for a customer or a prospect to be ready to say yes, how many are you doing right now? Are you throwing the towel very early into the fight, very early into the battle, very early into the sales process? Or are you doing what it takes to earn that new business? Mike?
Boy, that's really good. Yeah, because
You're like the best guest on the show. We should do our own show.
We should do another one. Because
Hey, mi casa,
what
su
you
casa,
just
Mike.
said, well, here's the truth. Most salespeople try once or twice. How many times do you get one voicemail or one email from a salesperson? And when I get one, I always say, yeah, if it's important or if they're good,
he'll call back.
They'll try me again.
Yes.
They'll try me again. And I'm so busy, I don't even respond to the first one. So the salesperson who tries 3, 4, 5 times and is creative and persistent, that's the one who gets noticed, and that's the one who earns the meeting. So what Gerardo is saying is 100% accurate, and I could not endorse it more. That's sales. And that's why people go back to where we started. If you're wired like a farmer or a zookeeper, and it makes you uncomfortable to call somebody a lot of times, or you feel like you're a pest and you're bothering them, you probably are in the wrong job. Because it's very rare that you try somebody once and they take your call or they see you and you immediately have a customer. It usually takes a lot of effort to get a meeting and then a lot of meetings to convince somebody that you can help them. And if you give up, you're never going to be good at sales, ever.
Beautiful. Mike, last question. Here in Cállate y Vende, we have that question that everybody, every guest on the show must answer, right? It's like the question. So here in Cállate y Vende, I'm going to say it in Spanish and then I'll translate it for you because it's part of like the tradition, all right? So, en Cállate y Vende, estamos buscando desarrollar auténticos y verdaderos cabrones de las ventas. Mike Weinberg, autor de los libros como Nuevas Ventas Simplificadas y Gerencia de Ventas Simplificadas, tipazo y amigo del programa. What is a vital asset on a true cabrón de las ventas? ¿Cuál es una característica esencial, vital en un cabrón de las ventas? On a sales ass kicker, if you will. What is a vital, a crucial asset that any sales ass kicker must have, Mike?
How many do I get? I get one?
One. D1.
Drive.
Love it.
Drive, heart, competitive spirit. That's all one. It's the willingness to go and fight, because that's who wins. I mean, we could talk about so many different angles.
Yes.
But it's not that you have to be tough or that you have to be a jerk, but you have to want it. And you have to believe that you're good enough and that your solution is good enough and you're willing to go at it. Because a lot of the big deals I've won in my life were not easy. And I didn't win them because I was such a good salesperson or because I was such a smooth talker or because I communicated so well. I won them because I had the drive to try really hard, and I was convinced that I could bring value to the customer, and I pushed them and pushed them and pushed them until they were willing to try it. And I think that's one of the keys.
Drive. I love it. Mike Weinberg, I thank you so much for being on this show. It was a true honor, sir. Amigo, mi casa es su casa. So please share your social media with the community so we can follow you.
Well, if you're ever in my part of the world, mi casa is su casa as well.
Thank you. Gracias.
I promise you we're going to meet in person somewhere.
I'm writing that down, Mike.
I'm sure we will cross paths in somewhere close enough. And maybe next time I'm in California, I'll give you a shout and we can meet.
All right.
My social media is real simple. It's Mike_Weinberg, and that's for Twitter and Instagram. So Mike, MIKE _Weinberg, WEINBERG. And my website is going to be mikeweinberg.com in about a month. But right now it's newsalescoach.com.
I'll put in the links within this episode's description for you guys to please follow this good man and this great author. Mike Weinberg, any final thoughts?
Keep it simple. Stay focused. Don't listen to a million morons that have crazy new ideas about how to sell. Stay on the basics. There's no shortcut in sales, and you'll do great.
Mike, thank you so much.
Great being with you. Gracias, my friend.
Well, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. My conversation with a truly sales master, Mr. El Señor, mi compadre, Mike Weinberg. Hopefully, you listen to this recording at least one more time because, as I said in the beginning of this, I told you this is going to be a lot of value, a lot of content for you. So please try to listen to it one more time with paper and pen in your hand and take a lot of freaking notes because there's a lot of things, there's a lot of best practices that you can start doing right now and grow your sales, grow your income, commission, baby, commission. All right, so I want to thank one more time to the sales master, Mr. El Señor, Mike Weinberg. Thank you so much, Mike. Mi casa es su casa, compadre, so you can drop by whenever you want, all right? So, las puertas están abiertas, compadre, para cuando te quieras echar otro palomazo con los cabrones de las ventas. I just want to close, before I wrap up the show, I just want to thank one more time for all of you that have hit the subscribe button over at iTunes, Stitcher, iVoox, whatever your favorite podcast platform is. I don't care. Just listen and support this type of projects. It would mean the world to me if you can leave me 5-star rating and your review in iTunes. If it's iTunes Mexico, iTunes USA, iTunes China, I don't care. Just leave your comment. This is my freaking fuel to keep me going and deliver this type of content. All right? So, as we say here in Cállate y Vende, muchísimas gracias. Yo te saludo la próxima semana. Y por lo pronto, hay que romperla, carajo.